Here's what your favorite films from the 1960s look like today. In Easy Rider, one of the most memorable scenes was filmed at a local diner in Morganza, Louisiana. Built long before the film, the little cafe sat at 118 Railroad Avenue and looked every bit the small town diner of the era. Plain wood siding, a few windows, a screen door, and a counter where the locals gathered. It was in this modest spot where Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper's characters faced the suspicious stares and harsh words of townsfolk. The cafe gave the movie one of its most unsettling moments. Today, the cafe itself is gone. It was demolished decades ago, but the location hasn't been forgotten. In 2019, locals celebrated the 50th anniversary of Easy Rider with a festival, and a facade of the diner was temporarily rebuilt on the original spot. A plaque is also set into the sidewalk, so visitors standing on that stretch of Railroad Avenue can see exactly where this iconic piece of film history once stood. The 1968 science fiction classic Planet of the Apes created an unforgettable vision of a world ruled by apes. For the scenes of Ape City and the humans trapped in outdoor cages, filmmakers didn't travel far from Hollywood. They built the elaborate sets at Malibu Creek State Park in Calabasas, California. Before it was a state park, the land actually belonged to 20th Century Fox, who used it as their private outdoor filming ranch. Its rugged canyons and wide open spaces gave a prehistoric feel, and the makeshift ape dwellings and cages fit perfectly against the rocky backdrop. Actors in heavy prosthetics and makeup filled the grounds, transforming the park into another world. The cages and sets are long gone now, and the site is now a favorite spot for hiking and picnicking. Today's visitors can walk the same paths Charlton Heston did, though now only the natural scenery remains. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds featured the Brenner family's house perched above Bodega Bay, California. The home, built just for the film, looked like a sturdy farmhouse with white siding and a simple welcoming porch. Surrounded by fields and open skies, it became the scene of escalating terror as flocks of birds relentlessly attacked from the chimney. Today, that house no longer exists. It was torn down after filming, but the line of cedar trees that stood beside it is still there on West Shore Road, allowing visitors to stand in the same place and imagine how it once looked. The hilltop remains windswept and open, just as in the movie. Locals in Bodega Bay often point out the exact spot to film enthusiasts, and the setting still carries the eerie feel that Hitchcock captured so well more than 60 years ago. Another famous location from The Birds was the Tides Wharf and restaurant at 835 California Highway 1 in Bodega Bay. In the movie, townsfolk gathered inside the restaurant to watch a terrifying gas station explosion outside through the large bay-facing windows. Built in the 1950s, the Tides was a classic coastal spot with long windows overlooking the water, fishing boats coming and going, and tourists enjoying fresh seafood. Hitchcock used those real views to frame the chaos outside. Today, the Tides Wharf still operates, though the building has been heavily remodeled since the 1960s. The interiors seen in the movie were actually sets built elsewhere, but the exteriors and the bay beyond remain familiar. Visitors can still sit by the glass and look out at nearly the same view that appeared on screen, though it's now a busier restaurant, serving tourists who often come specifically because of Hitchcock's film. In The Odd Couple, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau's characters attended a New York Mets game at Shea Stadium, bringing a bit of real city life into the comedy. Shea opened in 1964 and was then the proud new home of the Mets, with its round concrete design, orange and blue seats, and the rumble of jets overhead from nearby LaGuardia Airport. For fans in the late 60s, the stadium was a modern marvel, even if the Mets were still lovable underdogs. In the film, Oscar and Felix's banter played out while the game unfolded around them, capturing both the humor of the characters and the energy of Shea. Today, Shea Stadium is gone. It was demolished in 2009. In its place stands Citi Field, a new ballpark designed with brickwork and arches that recall old-time stadiums like Ebbets Field. On the plaza outside Citi Field, a marker shows exactly where home plate at Shea once sat. In Bullitt, Steve McQueen's gritty detective story, the Daniels Hotel served as a backdrop, though in reality it was the old Kennedy Hotel at 226, the Embarcadero. The building stood right beside the raised Embarcadero Freeway, also known as State Route 480, which loomed over the waterfront with its double-decked concrete lanes. Both the hotel and the freeway gave the film a stark urban feel, showing a San Francisco very different from the tourist-friendly postcard image. By 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake damaged both the hotel and the freeway beyond repair. The city tore them down in the early 1990s, opening up the waterfront to sunlight and new development. Where the hotel once stood, office towers and walkways line a much cleaner Embarcadero today. One of the most famous lines in Midnight Cowboy came not from the script, but by accident. As Dustin Hoffman and John Voight's characters cross 58th Street at 6th Avenue in New York, a real taxi nearly runs them down. Hoffman, staying in character, slams the cab with his hand and yells, "Hey! I'm walking here! I'm walking here!" A moment that became one of the film's trademarks, and quite possibly cinema's most famous improvised line. In the late 1960s, that corner was typical Midtown Manhattan, busy sidewalks, older storefronts, and a mix of cabs and buses clogging the street. Today, the intersection looks quite different. Many of the smaller shops are gone, replaced by modern glass towers and chain businesses. Still, film fans often stop on the north side of 58th Street to snap a photo where Hoffman made movie history. In Rosemary's Baby, the grand Gothic-style apartment building known as the Bramford was the setting for much of the story. In reality, the exterior was the Dakota, located at 1 West 72nd Street on the edge of Central Park. Built in 1884, the Dakota was already famous for its steep gables, tall dormers, and ornate stonework. On screen, its heavy shadowed facade seemed made for mystery and dread, and viewers watched Mia Farrow's Rosemary move in and out of its arched entryway. The building still stands today, and it remains one of New York's most prestigious addresses. The Dakota later gained even more fame in 1980 as the place where John Lennon was killed just outside its gates. Though its role in Rosemary's Baby cemented it as a landmark in film, its real history as both an architectural treasure and a site of tragedy makes it unforgettable for those in the know. The crime thriller Point Blank with Lee Marvin included scenes at Stegman's car dealership, filmed at 8855 West Washington Boulevard in Culver City. In the late 1960s, Los Angeles was filled with car lots just like it, bright banners waving, rows of gleaming cars lined up under the California sun, and sales offices with floor-to-ceiling windows. Marvin's cold, relentless character stalking through such an everyday place made the scene especially tense. That dealership building is now gone, cleared away as Culver City's streets changed over the decades. But just across the street, the building at 8870 West Washington Boulevard still stands, giving visitors a sense of the old neighborhood's look. Even with the changes, Culver City remains a well-known film hub, as it is just blocks away from major studio lots. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead begins with a simple, unsettling scene. A brother and sister visiting a grave in Evans City Cemetery in Pennsylvania. The cemetery's narrow drive and stone entrance set the tone, and it's there that Barbara hears her brother tease, "They're coming to get you," just before the first zombie attack. Filmed on a shoestring budget, Romero used the real cemetery's main gate and winding road to ground his horror story in everyday reality. Evans City Cemetery still welcomes visitors today, and fans of the film usually stop at the very gate seen on screen. In fact, the cemetery has embraced its place in film history, with events and markers noting its connection to Romero's classic. The spring break comedy, Where the Boys Are showcased The Elbow Room, a beachfront bar at 241 South Fort Lauderdale Beach Boulevard. Built in 1938, the Elbow Room had already been a favorite gathering spot, with its corner windows open to the ocean air and its prime spot right across from the sand. The movie turned it into a national symbol of youth, fun, and Florida's spring break culture, showing packed crowds and carefree dancing. Today, the Elbow Room is still standing in the exact same spot, making it one of the few film locations that looks much as it did in 1960, save for a new paint job. Though spring break culture has changed, tourists and locals continue to visit the bar, and it has even been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Bonnie and Clyde was filmed in towns across Texas, but one of its most memorable sequences showed the gang robbing a small-town bank. That scene was filmed at the old Farmers and Merchants Bank building at 100 North Washington Street in Pilot Point. The two-story brick structure, with its corner entrance and classic storefront windows, looked exactly like the kind of rural bank the real Barrow Gang would have targeted in the 1930s. In the movie, it lent authenticity to the Depression-era setting. Today, the bank no longer functions as a financial institution, but the historic building still stands proudly on the corner, part of Pilot Point's preserved downtown square. You can walk by the same doorway where actors Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway staged their holdup, but if you're hoping to walk away with bags of cash, you're out of luck. The pastoral scenes in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, including Paul Newman's famous bicycle ride, were filmed in Grafton Ghost Town near Rockville, Utah. Once a small farming community in the 1860s, Grafton had been abandoned by the mid-20th century, leaving behind weathered wooden houses, a red brick schoolhouse, and wide-open farmland. For the film, the quiet, empty town provided the perfect setting for moments of warmth and humor before the story turned darker. Today, Grafton still exists as a preserved ghost town. The schoolhouse and several homes have been stabilized, and you can wander through the grounds surrounded by cottonwoods and red rock cliffs. In True Grit, John Wayne's Oscar-winning role as Rooster Cogburn played out against the backdrop of Ridgway, Colorado. The film's opening scenes showed the Ouray County Courthouse and the town square with gallows and hangings staged on its streets. Built in the late 19th century, the courthouse's red brick, arched windows, and stately design gave the movie an authentic Old West feel. Around the square, false front storefronts in the small-town park helped bring the period setting to life. Today, Ridgway still celebrates its connection to the film. The courthouse remains in use, and the town square is largely unchanged, though modern shops and landscaping have joined the scene. Steve McQueen's The Thomas Crown Affair featured a stylish polo sequence filmed at the Myopia Hunt Club in South Hamilton, Massachusetts. Founded in 1882, the club was already one of the oldest polo clubs in the United States, with wide grassy fields, grandstands, and horse barns. For the film, McQueen himself, an avid polo player, took part in the match, adding authenticity to the sequence. The setting captured the wealth and elegance surrounding Thomas Crown's character. The Myopia Hunt Club is still active to this day, and polo matches continue to be held there each summer. Though the game has grown more exclusive over the years, the grounds remain very much the same as they appeared on film. Rolling fields bordered by trees, with horses thundering across the turf. In Goldfinger, one of the most famous James Bond films, the story opened with shots at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach. Built in 1954, the Fontainebleau was already a glamorous resort, with its sweeping curves, grand pool deck, and reputation for attracting celebrities. In the movie, Sean Connery's Bond watched Auric Goldfinger cheating at cards by the pool, setting the stage for their rivalry. The sunlit poolside, with its striped umbrellas and turquoise water, showed off Miami Beach at the height of its post-war boom. The Fontainebleau is still in operation and remains one of Miami's most famous hotels. It has been renovated many times, but the pool and sweeping architecture are still as glamorous as they were then. The epic film Spartacus opened with stark scenes of slaves toiling in the mines, filmed at Zabriskie Point and the Ryan Borax mine area in Death Valley, California. The jagged ridges and barren, sun-baked landscape stood in for the ancient Sicilian quarries where Kirk Douglas's Spartacus first appeared. Filming here gave the movie a sense of desolation that no studio backlot could capture, with wide shots of men working under a blazing sky. In reality, the Ryan mines had once been active borax sites, long abandoned by the time Hollywood crews arrived. Today, Zabriskie Point is part of Death Valley National Park, visited by tourists for its dramatic sunrise views rather than for any mining. The haunting story of whatever happened to Baby Jane used the Warner Brothers studio backlot in Burbank for its theater scenes. In the film, the character of Baby Jane recalls her days as a child star, with shots of ornate theaters and backstage areas. The Warner backlot, built to replicate classic urban streets and entertainment venues, gave filmmakers a controlled environment where they could recreate show business glamour and decay. During the early 1960s, this lot was one of the busiest in Hollywood, with sets constantly redressed for different productions. Today, Warner Brothers still uses the same backlot for television shows and films, and tourists can take guided tours to walk through the very streets Bette Davis and Joan Crawford once crossed. One of the most famous endings in film history comes from The Graduate. At the United Methodist Church of Laverne, Benjamin, played by Dustin Hoffman, crashes Elaine's wedding, shouting her name from the balcony. Built in 1905, the church has a simple white exterior with tall stained glass windows and a warm wooden interior. In the film, the chaos of Benjamin's desperate cry, the shocked wedding guests, and Elaine's decision to run created an unforgettable scene. Today, the church at 3205 D Street in Laverne still looks much the same, with its steeple and classic small-town charm intact. Couples continue to marry there, sometimes joking about the film's ending when they walk down the aisle. If you want, you can stop by to take photos at the doors and sanctuary, where Hoffman pounded on the glass. Richard Lester's Petulia captured the spirit of 1960s San Francisco, and one of its standout scenes featured a charity fundraiser in the lobby of the Fairmont Hotel. Built in 1907 on Nob Hill, the Fairmont was already a symbol of elegance, with marble columns, grand staircases, and high ceilings. In the movie, audiences saw a lively fundraiser featuring Janis Joplin's band, Big Brother and the Holding Company, playing right in the middle of this upscale setting. The contrast of counterculture music in a formal ballroom captured the collision of old and new that defined San Francisco at the time. The Fairmont still serves as one of the city's premier hotels, hosting world leaders and celebrities. The lobby and ballrooms remain largely unchanged, so visitors can still walk through the same spaces where Petulia staged its memorable blending of rock music and high society.